Craig always told me the story is not worth telling if it's not worth embellishing. Embellish for dramatics. King obviously does. I won't embellish this one. It was about 6 to 8 months after Craig's suicide. Started doing family research, seeing if there was any trace of depression in the family. And I did find it. I mean, I remember hearing as a child of it. So I did some research, talked to some relatives, and found it was pretty thick in my blood on one side. So I thought, oh, how are my living relatives that had the same blood? My dad in particular, I was worried about him. I don't know why, but I was. I felt inclined to see him and talk to him and listen to him. And the truth is, it was the outpouring of love I felt after Craig's suicide. All the beautiful things so many people said. So many people said such beautiful things. I thought to myself at one point, if only Craig could have heard then what I hear now, perhaps I would have made a difference. But then, that's almost assigning accountability where it doesn't belong, perhaps. But I thought, well, how do I do on that? And I realized I don't do well. My own father, even. His sacrifices, his life's work, his 5 children, never wanting what we didn't receive. Significant. It was 5 times what I accomplished for 15 years only. So the whole family was going to Florida for a vacation. St. George Island, a beautiful place on right at the Big Bend of Florida, south of Tallahassee. And I was invited, and I said, I'm not ready. I've only been 8 months or so past my son, and I'm not ready to be around. Not so much be around, I just wasn't ready yet. I was still isolating. This was pre-COVID, of course. So they went, I stayed home, working through it all, the grief, the pain and suffering. I was learning to use it, but I wasn't that good at it just yet. So I had this feeling about my dad, and I decided I needed to be there. So I bought a plane ticket. I flew to Tallahassee, Florida, and I got a rental car, and I drove down to the coast, across to St. George Island, and I showed up for the last 2 days. And I spent those days with my nieces and nephews and talking to my dad, mother, sister, brother-in-law. A lot. My dad just watching and talking and observing. End of the trip, 2 days later, I got in my rental car back to Tallahassee, airplane flying home, and I thought, I've never told my dad all the things I really feel about him. I've never said it. My father was a man of great intelligence and, I would imagine, complex and deep emotional thought, although we didn't express it verbally so much. Emotional stuff. He was very, very loving dad, and I mean, I can't even explain what he all did for us and what he went through, but it was of love that he did it all. I felt that love, and I wanted to tell him how much he meant. What if my father were to die and I never said it? Why do we wait till funerals? Why do we wait till funerals to say what we feel of people? Why? Why not tell them when they're alive? So I couldn't say so I could write it. I felt closest to my son when I wrote, so I started writing on that plane ride. I wrote for about a month. I wrote for a month, and at the end of the month I was like, man, this is something. I got something here. This is good. This is what I want to say to him, but it's missing everything. So I recruited my brothers and my sister. Asked them if they would join me and do this, and they did. They rallied, and we wrote. We wrote for almost 9 months. And it just so turns out, it was close to Father's Day when it was around Father's Day, and I was like, let's deliver this on Father's Day. Why not? So Chip had already submitted, Corky had submitted. It was really down to Chad and myself. I told Chad I was done, although I wasn't. But Chad submitted, and then I finished, and I edited, composed, wrote a table of contents of 4 and a section for Cray Anthony. And we had a completed book. We titled it, Who's Chuck? This is the book. Photo on it. And at the bottom right here it says, from the sons and daughter, letters to a loved father. Table of contents and a foreword, 1 chapter from each child. And that's the book. Simple, print it out. I invited him to go to a service at First Baptist to hear his favorite preacher, Dale, preach on Father's Day, and we went. Fantastic sermon. Afterwards, I said, well, I'll meet you guys at your house for lunch. I went up there for lunch. Just talked, conversation. Talked a lot about the sermon. And at the end, I said, well, here, Dad, here's your Father's Day present from Chad, Chip, Corky, and myself. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just handed it to him. I said, we wrote you something. And I gave it to him as I left. I wasn't looking for credit necessarily. It truly was not about me. I understand it's a good thing to do, but it truly was about him. I wanted that man to feel the love that his children had for him, because I know how immense it is. Losing my son, I gained the knowledge of how they felt when they lost their son. However, I did not gain the knowledge of knowing what it felt like to watch a son lose a son. Think about that. Anybody that's a parent watching this knows that your primary goal as a parent is protection of your child. Avoid pain, suffering, protect them at all costs, step in front of it, train for them. We do that for our children because we have unconditional love for them. But what do you do when you watch your child suffer a pain that you know you could do nothing about, and you know the depth of that pain? That's I don't know if it could get worse, as I know that pain. So I handed the book and I left. No big deal. And my mother told me, I've never seen my father cry. My mother told me he read this book for 2 days and cried for 2 days. And that crying, those tears were tears of feeling the love his children really had for him. Yesterday was his funeral. Less than a year after we handed him that book. I spoke at his funeral, and I didn't speak to the things I said in that book, but there's no reason. The funeral wasn't necessarily for him. Yes, we're honoring him. It was for my mother, my sister, my nieces and nephews, my brothers, myself, my priest, the congregation, the countless of people that loved this man. But the truth is, you know what? My grandfather, my dad's father, said it best. proven worthwhile anything I have done, I credit it to the illumination of the Holy Spirit. If I could have one wish, I would wish that others are illuminated by the Holy Spirit and do this for their father, their mother, their brother, their sister, their friend. Simply show love. That's all that we did, is we showed love through a book. But Chuck received love. And it was a beautiful thing. And I feel good about my father passing and going home to his father, our father, my son, his dad. So many. I feel good about that. Because he knew the love he had. Who's Chuck? That was the name of the book. And it was a beautiful thing. And I thank God for inspiring or illuminating me to do it. It's not about I. It's all about God. Because God is love. And love is the only reason we're here. And I love everybody watching this. And I hope, I pray that God fills me with such peace and love that I only display that for the rest of my days. That is true.